Hello, this is Dale, and this is the Dale and Mike Show. I'm the Dale part of it, and...
I'm the Mike part.
Oh, nice timing, Mike. Okay. So, we've got so much to talk to you about. This is actually the most action-packed, well, so to speak, day of the week, in that the Thursday administration workshop happened in the little back room with two commissioners. See, Simon Hare is in Washington, D.C., and what's so exciting about that is he's joined with 100 U.S. senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives, and let's see here, 3,143 representatives from county governments, and we have three, and so maybe about 10,000 of them, right? And then he's going there, and they're saying, "Are you Simon Hare? Are you from the middle of nowhere, Oregon? Why? We're going to listen to everything you say. Hey, weren't you the guy that used to work here? In fact, why don't you go get me a cup of coffee? Haven't seen you in a while."
Well, listen.
We paid for that trip.
Yeah, and if you're a commissioner, I mean, I really would like to know what's going on back there. But if you're a commissioner from here and you want some FaceTime with people, you go when no one else is there.
Yeah, you don't go along with 1,000 other people. Come on. Everybody there is asking for something that no one else is interested in. You know, I'm absolutely sure that there are American bison, buffalo if you insist, that can be slaughtered today because there's too many of them. It probably would be possible, whether you like it or not, to harvest big whales off the coast of Nantucket and still not interrupt the population too much. There's a possibility to chop down 400-year-old trees. Of course there are. But there are very few people in this country who can accept the fact. I mean, they've just barely got to the idea that they want to protect some things. They're not going to accept the fact, because they can't keep two ideas in their head at once, that it's okay if you chop down some trees. It's probably okay if you want too many American bald eagles that are jumping on school children and pulling them away. I mean, maybe at some point,
yes,
you have to say goodbye to some of them.
That's happening all the time.
Well, there's too many of them.
I mean,
there's too many wolves. Yeah.
The internet is just fraught with eagle snatching now.
So he's there to try to convince them, oh, please let us cut down more trees, and they're going, we don't have any trees here at all.
Yes.
Oh, well, no. That's the theory behind what he's doing, but that's not what he's doing. He's looking for his next job. We know that. We all know that. We have paid for his trip to go there and do job interviews. Come on. Yeah. You wait when he comes back, and they say, "Where's your report?" Simon's going to say, well, there's not much of that. Yeah, we already know that.
Yes.
It's just a free trip. Okay, so that's lovely. There was something, I just have to share this with you before I forget. There was a little thing on the front page of the Courier today, and I'm thinking laboratories, okay? And it says, I'm looking at my notes, labs extend, okay, labs extend, record, yeah. Labs extend record as U.S., top dog. What? What? Laboratories do what? Labs extend record as U.S. top dog. What the heck does that supposed to mean? Labs extend record as U.S. top dog?
Yes, you might be reading that wrong.
They weren't talking about Labradors. I mean, they were talking about Labradors, not laboratories. Labrador dogs are now, they extended their record as U.S.'s top dog. Is this the way it was written?
Well,
it's like bears live young near the snakes. What? They do?
Yes.
That's an inside joke for those of you who've been watching our show. Bears live young. Daddy, do they live young? That's what the sign said.
Yes, they do. They do. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. That's
Labs extend record as U.S. top dog. All right.
Well,
now,
and I'll tell you, and if here, let me comment on the substance of that headline.
Yes.
Labs are going to be hard to knock off of there because, I mean, who doesn't love a lab?
Beagle owners.
They're just, hey, how you doing?
Beagle owners love beagles, not necessarily labs.
Yes, I suppose.
But beagles are kind of cute dogs. But okay, all right. So,
I have a lab, so that's it. Case closed.
Oh, I see. You have a lab. He has a meth lab. Okay, so the Channel 12, after this terrible, disgusting, dishonest, lying story that they did about Simon Hare. I mean, who better deserves it? But still, they did lie to us. Now they've redeemed themselves in that they were first on the spot, as far as we know, with this story about this little 6-year-old. And if you haven't heard this story,
yes.
Hunter Camello without the A. It's C-M-E-L-O. Really? Okay, whatever. So anyway, here's this little guy, and he's been late to school a bunch of times, and the school has sent a letter back to the parents saying, he's showing up late to school. He's 6 years old. What is he missing? But still, they said you've been late, and so they decided that they're going to teach the parents a lesson by humiliating this little 6-year-old at school. Well, probably what they should do is do that to the parents. But here's a report by Channel 12. I just want to point out, Channel 12 was first. See, in the news business, Mike, in the news business, being there first is kind of a big deal. Channel 12 was definitely there first. And then that was immediately followed up by KMED with Billmeier the next morning. Okay, then we were next. And then the Courier came up around 2 o'clock, and then coming in dead last was KJO. And so here, why don't you listen to this story?
Well, and some of the other stations over in Medford, they picked it up too. So
okay, so here we go, and you can see how Channel 12 covered this. Under the fair use doctrine, we can replay this story for you, but there's a logo at the top that tells you the name of their story. So you get a chance to see this. Now, we're going to talk over parts of it because it's just so much fun, and it's our show. Okay, so go ahead and play that footage.
The image of a 6-year-old boy sitting behind a partition started a debate on social media and caused parents in and outside of the Grants Pass School District to ask questions about what's appropriate discipline for a first grader.
The district does not call the separation from the schoolmates in the cafeteria during lunch discipline. In fact, the superintendent says it is extended learning time. News 12's Aaron Maxon continues to follow this story. I spoke with the parents last night. Tonight, the superintendent is giving us his reaction.
Today, the school resource officer and the superintendent joined Principal Missy Fitzsimmons right before school started for the time when parents drop off their kids. Superintendent John Higgins says Fitzsimmons received a number of threats and harassing phone calls, but this morning she also received something else.
Almost unanimous, everyone wishing Principal Fitzsimmons well, giving her a hug. I think one person brought a bouquet of flowers. There's a high level of support for the principal because they know this is a very productive learning community that gets great results and mainly cares about kids.
The Grants Pass School District says Lincoln Elementary won recognition in 2012 from the state for being an outstanding school.
That's an interesting thing to bring up.
Complimented them on their culture, their atmosphere, and their the progress that was made for all students. And so it's an award-winning campus.
It's an award-winning campus.
Deals with tardiness differently. Superintendent John Higgins says the point of any protocol is to get the child caught up on the missed schoolwork.
The last thing you would ever do is have a protocol in place that it isolates or stigmatizes a student. That's not what the Lincoln protocol is about.
This wasn't isolating anybody.
Just behind him. Just look at this picture. He's not isolated.
6-year-old Hunter,
he's not stigmatized either. Come on.
It showed up on Facebook. What do you
That's
see?
not isolated. Look at him.
Is a reason for
He's
us to take a closer look at what's happening at Lincoln in this area and see if there's a way that we can structure this extended learning time to get kids caught up in a way that there's no actual or perceived isolation or stigmatizing of students.
Would you have had an immediate reaction emotionally to seeing your child there?
Well, I think the emotional reaction would have been like any parent. I mean, whenever you see a child in a unique learning environment, and it's your child, it may trigger some questions.
What a unique learning environment!
Says Lincoln's protocol is meant to provide a supervised additional learning time in a non-distracting setting. Higgins says this is the first year lunch detention for tardiness has happened in the lunchroom.
With regard to the use of the cafeteria space and the confidential cubby, which is meant to provide
confidential cubby.
Confidential cubby
area where they can focus on their learning and not be distracted by the kids in the cafeteria that are having lunch and doing this.
If this is perfect, where are they going to change it?
But the parent indicates that the changes need to be made, we will make them.
Oh, sure. We will now.
Hunter's parents say the district did just that. They had a meeting this afternoon with Principal Fitzsimmons, and according to the district, both the school and the parents reached an agreement that they're all happy with. Hunter's dad, Mark, says the school told them that the current procedure of separating a child within the lunchroom with one of those dividers will no longer be used.
But why
not? On social media to let us know if you feel like this was a good solution. Just look for this post on our Facebook page.
But what will happen to the confidential cubby? I mean, this is a wonderful plan. Right? They've won awards for such things, right?
I want to trademark the name Confidential Cubby and sell it to school districts all over the United States. Hey, you can put them in here. It's what is it? Extended learning time, and they can catch up. They can catch up on everything that they missed being tardy. And this is going to be good.
Now, look, what they were trying to do is they were trying to teach the parents a lesson by using the little guy and stigmatizing him. And isolating him and making him feel like, what, and then that would get back to the parents. And that worked. Look at this.
Look at this. This is not isolated. There's no stigma here at all.
No.
Look at this kid. He is not isolated.
His mother came by and he was crying. Okay, he's a sensitive little dude. Okay. So look. Everybody should be on top of the parents. The thing was that he was showing up for school late over and over and over again. His mother said, well, our car doesn't work. If there's bad weather out there, we haven't had much of that, you get up earlier. And so even if the guy shows up 10 minutes early, that's better than 10 minutes late over and over and over again. Okay, and even the parents agree, okay, we're blowing it. The question is this what you do to a 6-year-old? Show that clip, that picture again there, Mike. Is this what you do to a 6-year-old when you want to be sure that the parents are getting the message?
Of course not. And the funny thing is listen, they sent a notification home. She knew this was going to happen, so she's the one who took these pictures.
She didn't know that he was going to be behind.
Well, I mean, she knew something was going to happen. She knew that he was going to be punished for her lateness. It's not his lateness. It's her lateness.
That's correct.
And the bottom line is, listen, for whatever sympathy I have for this woman, you know what? You need to get up a little bit early. I realize you have an issue. A health issue or whatever, and so set your clock a little bit earlier. Or when when your husband gets up to go to work, have him wake you up. Get you ready for things. He
was sleeping in. That's true. But look, the other thing.
Yeah, no, this is what's going on.
For people who are wondering why didn't they take the bus, because they live too close to school to take a bus.
Yeah,
they live within walking distance of school, but she's got the osteo something and can't make that walk with the little guy and the 3-year-old. That's a little difficult, but she does have a car. Look, here's what happened. Here was the result. So Billmeier at KMED, this is the radio station you ought to be listening to. Billmeier at KMED hears about this morning, and so he gets a Grants Pass, Kelly's Automotive, a Grants Pass repair place on the phone, and he says, can you please help these people? Not live on the air, because that'd be a little rude, but he does ask them if they would help. Now wait a minute. Where's K-Joe? Okay, K-Joe is in Grants Pass. This is a Grants Pass problem. It was solved by a Grants Pass repair place, and it was done by somebody in Medford, because KMED actually keeps track of the news. What an interesting concept. Now, you can see, No, you can't. Well, you can listen to. You can see this little duffer behind the cardboard partition, cardboard curtain. Take down this wall, and you can listen to what you can listen to what KMED had to say. You can see that on our website. It's right up here. See, here's Keith Hick admonishing people that if you chuckle even silently, you'll need to be ejected.
He's going to put you in the confidential cubby. You'll be put in the confidential cubby for 10 minutes.
That was mentioned to me more than once by people that wrote in. And so here's Keith Hick admonishing us, if you laugh at us again by saying that we're not involved, when we say we're not involved in the levy, well, you'll be tossed out. And here he is sort of yelling toward this little guy, Hunter, and here I am down here pointing out how they're liars and cheaters, and this is our new weapon in the war against crime, against crime inside the outbasker, and that we're on the air. This is now what we do. But you can click on Hunter, and you can see this story for yourself, and just help it go viral.
Right, and the thing is that they in this story here, this video that we have here is the interview of the mother with Billmeier that happened this morning.
That's what you'll be able to see when you go to our website. That's right, exactly right. Well, let's move along to the Thursday administrative workshop. So as always, I'll introduce these things to you more or less in order of what they said. By the way, one thing that you can look forward to, this will be very interesting, there's a full court press by Cheryl Walker to try to convince you, one, the commissioners are really lovely, and two, you need to vote to raise your property taxes. And so she had somebody come in from IVCDO, the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization, to extol their virtues and talk about how it's such a wonderful idea that we have 214 full-time family wage jobs coming up any time now, because they have now finished with most of the stuff at that state park, and this was a decision made by the three commissioners, and what a lovely thing that is. Next week, they were just going to have So Ready come in and tell us how they have plans now. Now they finally have plans for spending our money, and that's going to be wonderful for Josephine County, but that's not enough. Wait, there's more. And that she's decided that she needs to have the finance director come in and explain, gee, what would be the first thing? Okay, let's restore confidence in the commissioners. What else do we need to do to get people to vote for the levy? Oh, I know. We'll have him come in and, what a surprise, talk about the Internal Services Fund. Yes, we need that explained to us, please, Commissioner Cheryl Walker.
Well, why we need to have it, and so don't even think about trying to have that removed. Listen, I hate to give them PR pointers, but you should just shut up about the Internal Services Fund and hope no one ever thinks about it again between now and the time they vote.
Here's the phrase you need to memorize. Hopefully, in the future, we won't have to deal with problems like yours ever again. That's the typical response that you get from government. Okay, what happened at today's Thursday? I know that you're panting in anticipation. Here we go.
I have my pen.
Okay, so they talked. So in comes Scott Chansey, good guy. He's from Transit, and he's talking about an outfit, a deal called Translink. And as it turns out, apparently we're going to get some kind of funds, and the idea is that when people need to get transportation that's special outside of the bus offerings, the standard bus offerings, that there's some money that can come in to help people get around. For example, he got really dinged a lot for this idea of how the regular bus route doesn't go right by the Veterans Administration Center. And there are people who like it to make a detour over there for the Veterans Administration Center. And he says, wait a minute, we can't do that for every special interest group. Plus, you know, if you're especially a disabled vet, that's all you need to do is call us, and we'll send a bus straight over to you. Now, it costs $2 versus 50 cents, but it'll come to your house and pick you up. And if you're in a wheelchair, it will help you. It has a wheelchair, raising thing, or whatever they call that, wheelchair. I don't want to say wheelchair ramp because those are specific to the state park and IV. And it has all this stuff for you, and it'll take you there, and it will then bring you back home. And all this is possible. So there was a bunch of hullabaloo about, oh, he doesn't care. Yes, he does. Okay, so I'm not making excuses for my government, but I think this guy does. So what he did is he's got this thing called Translink, and they're going to start doing. What's his motivation for doing it? It's not just the funds, because they've got pretty much good funds to do things. He said, we occasionally have, in between routes, we've got some downtime with our drivers because they're supposed to wait and do it on a standard basis. He said, I'd like to see that when there's any downtime at all, this is government work, I'd like to put them in a bus and have them go out and get somebody and take them somewhere and then get back in time for the next bus. This is government workers? He said, I'd like them to be working during their entire span of time that they're here on the payroll. This is government workers? This is Scott Chansey. Now, one other thing about this that I think is interesting is he said, we could lower the rate down so that we could take business away from anybody, but we're not supposed to do that because we're government. We're not supposed to compete with private enterprise. He said, so I set the rate a little bit higher than some of the other places in town. Oh, how many are there? Oh, about half a dozen. Really? I set it a little higher than their rates. Really? Now, the person that needs to listen to this is the infamous Art Harvey. Art Harvey is the county's, he's the guy that counts the votes. He's the county clerk. And you may recall that Art Harvey went 3 times back to back to back to the commissioner saying, we've got people here who are just kind of sitting around. That's not the way he put it. And we could compete in certain businesses in the area and doing certain things that are offered by some of the commercial firms in town. Oh, really, Art? Really? Yeah, there's a place across the street, and we could get the business, we could take their business away. I'm paraphrasing. We could take their business away. I went and talked with those guys and said, what? What? Yeah, you see, because we can offer the service for next to nothing because we got PERS and people are already paid and we've got all the infrastructure, which of course across the street under private enterprise, they have to pay for all of that out of their family funds. It's a family-run organization.
It's actually worse than that. Those people pay taxes to subsidize him wanting to steal their business.
So this is Art Harvey. Remember, this is the guy that said that people who question government are morons. Local government, morons. This guy's coming up for re-election. There's a note for you, Art Harvey, county clerk. And so he went to the commissioners and said, no, we can't compete with private enterprise. He came back the next week. We really should compete with private enterprise because we could whip them every day of the week. We could take all that business away from them saying, Art, what are you thinking? You cannot compete with private enterprise. They're paying your bills. Then he came back a 3rd time. Oh, come on, let me compete with them. No. And that's when I had the guy come across the street and said, what are you guys thinking? And they finally told Art enough to make him go away muttering to himself about, hey, we could compete. We could get all that business. Art,
why? What? Yeah, but why did he want to do that?
Money coming into his people's, not his people's pockets, but his department's pockets. It would be sucking off of the population at the expense of a private enterprise. What a lovely idea for government to do. And he's calling us morons. All right, don't get me started. Too late.
Did I sigh loud enough?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. Now, you may remember, so Diane Hoover comes in from Public Health. You may remember there was a big thing about people saying, why did you put that dog to death? Apparently there was this dog, and he belonged to somebody, and then they weren't taking good care of him, and so the dog catchers caught him up and took him down to the pound. And there were a number of people who said, yeah, he's got heartworm or whatever, which is spread by mosquitoes.
It was Riley. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, listen, let us adopt this dog, okay? If he's not going back to the original, don't put him to death. We can find a place for him. There are plenty of people in our community who do care about such things. And they said, we would like to get more information about this dog because we'd like to be able to do something with him. And well, see, you may not know this, but there's a strict policy in the county. They can't give you information about that dog because, you know, there's privacy rules. Privacy rules for a dog? Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Don't you know about HIPAA?
For dogs? So they said so she reiterated today how they're going to have to tighten up a bit because, you know, you need to keep this information secret from the public about really. And so now it's really secret because he's dead. Yeah. And they had in mind doing something to help this situation. And, why, my gosh, we've got to protect his privacy. There's one sure way to protect his privacy, and unless you've got a shovel, it will never be given up again.
Yes, that's right. Well, you know what, and just on the HIPAA thing, I know this doesn't have anything to do with HIPAA, but everybody knows what HIPAA is. And when I went to have something removed from my eye here the other day, and I went into this place, and you know, every time you go into a doctor's office, you have to read and then sign a HIPAA disclosure or whatever. And she asks me, do you want to see the updated HIPAA form? No, I don't want to see the HIPAA form. Nobody reads that anyway. They just sign it. It's stupid.
Oh, speaking of reading. Speaking of reading and medicine and dogs, okay, well, I went to a vet's office one time and they had an eye chart on the wall.
Yeah.
Well,
now Rover, can you read me line 4?
Woof, yeah. Woof, woof, woof.
Oh, yes. That's exactly correct.
Perfect eyesight.
Wow, your vision is good.
Eye chart. Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, all right. So, so they were talking about the Demick Tower today, and they're going to put a request for proposals because they didn't have a plan before they had no plan before they did this of how they're going to market this bare patch of land. Why? It's in a perfect location. Is it? It is? Okay, well, it's right downtown. No, not exactly, but okay, whatever you want to call it. And so they're going to put in an RFP, a request for proposals. Now, you may recall I mentioned to you the RFP that we had to do free work for the county, completely free, and we had already proven we knew how to do it. They knew that. And we had to dig for information. They didn't want to give it to us. Well, I just found it amusing today that the finance director was talking about, he said, you know, we want to get the widest pot. We're going to call up some of the local companies and tell them about this on the telephone. Really? We couldn't get the information when we were begging for it. But they're going to call most of the old boy contractors in the area and tell them on the phone, oh, look, there's a remember the fight that we had to get them to do any kind of RFP for our television services? Well, you're watching television, so we're sort of television. They didn't even want to do that. And once they did it, they said, we've already picked the winner. We've already picked the winner before the RFP goes out. Well, these guys, they're actually going to call. This is the right way to do it. The thing is that I'm the only one that shows up at these meetings. So when they cancel the meeting, they could potentially call me. Yes, they're not going to do that, but they could go out into the hallway where I'm sitting there waiting and say, by the way, this meeting's been canceled, but that doesn't always happen. I'm sitting a few feet away from them. So just so that you know, our very understanding county government is doing a reach out to other members of the well, no, maybe they're not members. They're probably not all members of the same club, which shall remain nameless, but its initials are, what are its initials there?
Rotary, I think.
Oh, no, Rotary, you're supposed to say the initials. Okay, anyway, so they're going to be making phone calls to anonymous people.
It rhymes with boatery.
Yes, that's what it does. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember when we were telling you last week that Moody's was going to come in here and they were going to make a rating about our county government, and Simon here was telling everybody, well, I have to be very careful with what I say. Really? Do you have to be very careful? Yeah, well, you need to get the lies all in alignment, and I need to tell them about how good we're doing because we have a negative rating. Gee. Yes, because that kind of matches with what you've been telling the people about what our financial situation is.
We're hanging by our fingernails.
Yeah, hanging there.
I wonder if they're going to tell them that.
No. Here's what happened. Now, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. They apparently, what Simon here, because they talked about it today, though Simon's not here because he's off in Washington, D.C. getting us a boatload of money. Yeah, just wait for that boat to come in. When my boat comes in, I'm going to be at the rail station. Okay, so he convinced them that with all the things that we've been talking to you about, that we're conservative in the way we spend money in Josephine County. So Moody's now has taken the negative rating off, and now guess what we get to do if we want to? We get to borrow money at really terrific rates. Now that we've convinced them that we're so careful in how we spent the money on, let's say, Mark Von Holly, what we intended to do with that guy, that we're so careful when we give this money away to So Ready and to the IVCDO that's going to build the wheelchair ramps. We're so careful. We're so conservative in the way I'm more conservative than they are.
Well,
they're so conservative.
All I can say is, can you say PERS bond? That's what I expect coming down, because they haven't had one of those in about 10 years, so we're kind of due.
Okay, then the last fun thing that is happening that they talked about was, do you remember when they were talking earlier about the Job Council, and some guy got up at the weekly business session, maybe some of you know this, others don't, and he said, what's happening to the Job Council? Is it just evaporating? Is it being disbanded? Why would we disband the Job Council? Well, part of the reason, the actual reason, is they don't help people find jobs. They want to be called workforce development, because workforce development, all they have to do is train people, and they don't care if they get a job or not. I mean, they pretend like they do, but see, they can still get their grants if they're training foresters with 2 fingers left to operate a computer. And as soon as you can operate a keyboard on a computer, why, you're in for thousands of dollars every week because you're now trained. Okay, so that sounds a little negative. I'm so sorry. So, Job Council, and what did they indicate? As you recall, because you were listening to all of this, what did they indicate was happening with Job Council? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. Basically, they talked about it was a name change. No, that's okay. It was a name change, and this is a more efficient way of doing things, and it's more in keeping with with the things that they prefer to emphasize. Well, today at this meeting, they were talking about, it's the first time I've heard this word, Job Council bankruptcy. Really? And they mentioned it so quickly, they knew what they were talking about. Now, how the heck did they know what this was about if they never talked to each other about county business outside of, this is county business, outside of a public meeting? I go to all the meetings. First time I've ever heard Job Council bankruptcy.
Well, certainly these people email one another, wouldn't you think?
Yes. That's what happened in Lane County when they got $1 million judgment against them, because they were sharing information outside of the knowledge of the public. Look, if you want them to share information, they can do that all day long on how to grow the best roses. But when they talk about county business as our public servants, we're supposed to know what they're saying and the deals they're making. Do you remember the deal where we were walking out of the Ann Basker and Charlie Chase, who used to seem like a good guy, came up to the 2 commissioners and was talking to them about how he wanted to be appointed to some kind of committee? And I said, guys, it's against the law to do this. You're not supposed to lobby them. I said, Charlie, you're not breaking the law. But they are, and they know they are. And Simon here took off immediately. And that's when Keith Hicks said, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care. They're not supposed to discuss county business at a meeting of the What club?
The Board of Commissioners Club?
Rotary Club. They're not supposed to do it there, behind closed doors. They're not supposed to talk about county business outside of the presence of their bosses. We're the bosses, and we're supposed to know what's happening. Now, if you don't want to know what's happening, why are you watching this show? But, okay, so we try to keep track of what it is they're doing, not the stupid, teensy little details that nobody cares about, but the fact that they held up their hand and swore to obey state law, which says you're supposed to be sure that people know what the heck you're talking about. Well, so if they're sharing emails about what's going to happen with the Job Council, they say one thing at a weekly business session and they say something else when they forget the camera's running. This is illegal. They do it all the time. They're breaking the law round the clock.
And they don't care.
No, and he assaulted me. Maybe with the new DA, I can get a copy of the report that I put in there. I can't even see my own report. What kind of DA is that? Well, okay, so here's what you need to do, in my opinion. You should come to badcounty.com, and you should take a look at this little guy named Hunter Camello and listen to Billmeier talk to his mom. This is the longest extended interview that anybody has, and we've posted it, and we're going to let people know generally what's happening, and then you can have your opinion about what the parents should do. I mean, Mike and I do. We think the parents should get the little guy there on time. Either that or teach him how to drive at 6 years old.
That's right.
Get him there on time, but then you can become informed if you come and you look at this little video and listen to what the mom has to say. She comes across as fairly reasonable, but she needs to get her act together, obviously. Okay, not trying to be too tough on her, but this little guy shouldn't be paying this price. And then the best part of all is you can listen to John Higgins on Channel 12 talk about how we're not isolating anybody. No. Oh, we're not stigmatizing anybody. No, no. Why, this is an award-winning plan. Yes, yes. But we're going to change it all. No, why are you going to change all that, John? Well, because, you know, we've thought more about it. Yeah. What made you think more about that, John?
And the